I hate these stories because these stories are nothing but pure tragedy, predictable tragedy. And when it happens, everyone's got to run around saying, "Oh, how could this have happened?" This is not mislabeling it, but labeling it in a way to circumvent the actual underlying problem, the actual underlying policy failures that have created this situation. It's not just like an accidental, "Oh, how could..." Everyone said it's going to happen. Everyone knew it was going to happen. And some might say it was even by design, because you can't be this fractally wrong in life without it being intentional. Democrats who for years have opened the borders, these NGO asylum-seeking agencies that are basically participating in human trafficking, telling illegals, come cross the border. When you get over the border, here's what you do: claim asylum. What could possibly go wrong when you open the border? Do you know how many people were crossing the border daily under Biden administration for 4 years? Create a problem so big, so wild that it's unsolvable, but exploited politically for more seats in Congress because you run the census and you include illegals. Get the judiciary involved so that you can't possibly solve the problem because you can issue blanket TPS to circumvent the illegal invasion of a country, but you have to remove it on an individual basis. And then lo and behold, what happens? This happened yesterday. You've all known about it, or you all know about it because everybody's been talking about it. A man, an asylum seeker, alleged asylum seeker, claimed the asylum, who was in the country illegally, attacked what was a pro-Israel or pro-release the hostages in Gaza event. And there's some, I have to get this one. This one's not going to be good enough here. Let me see here. No, this is not an article. Here we go. Some were reporting that he had a flamethrower. Others were reporting Molotov cocktails. I've seen a picture where it looks like there was some sort of device above and beyond the Molotov cocktails. But the man took to one of these events to hurl Molotov cocktails and flame-throwing incendiary devices at spectators, including women and children. Let's just see what it says here. Let's just see what the breaking is. Do I refresh this? We will never tolerate this kind of hatred, U.S. Attorney General. We can now bring you the latest reaction from senior U.S. Justice Department officials after federal prosecutors filed a hate crime charge against Colorado suspect Mohammed Suleiman. I'm going to give Laura Loomer the credit that she does deserve in this case, because I believe that she was the first person on the internet to identify Mohammed Suleiman as the perp, while other outlets were referring to him as a white male. I gotta bring this up. And I double checked with Laura. Like I say, what's your level of confidence on this? Because when it comes to something like that, you don't want to be involved in not doxing, but you don't want to be involved in unleashing a lynch mob on the wrong person, nor do you even want to be involved in unleashing a lynch mob on the actual suspect. So before you repeat a name, I want to make sure, and I double checked, and then I saw that New York Post had been reporting it, other outlets had been reporting it, some without giving credit to Laura Loomer, but before the name was out there, and unless this video is fake and falsified and AI generated, which I don't think it is to the best of my ability to double check, this is how propagandist news was. You don't want backlash. You don't want people getting angry and rioting in the streets like they did in the UK, so just come out and lie.
As far as the investigation itself, we're still trying to verify and confirm some video, but it appears to show a significant portion of the incident as it happened. There's an individual that's taken into custody. He's a white male. Whether or not that's the person that police ultimately arrested and will ultimately charge in this crime, a bit of a question at this time, but that's just what we've seen so far.
Now, in fairness, it's the fog of war. A white male might have been taken into custody that wasn't the man, or they might have just been making a mistake, and it's the fog of war, and don't rely on early information or take it with a grain of salt. Then you saw footage like this, and I made sure that this was in fact legit and actual footage before posting it. This was this the white male?
What we can't do when he's got Molotov cocktails.
If you are fighting, you have to.
That's what he's got right here. Is Molotov.
Now, but by the way, look behind him right here. This, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is the incendiary device that was being referred to as a flamethrower in the media. Not 1,000% certain about it, but that's my belief. A white male, Viva tweets, is this the white male suspected terrorist in question? He's got a pretty distinct white male accent. And his name, Mohammed Soliman, as identified by Laura Loomer, is a pretty distinct white male name. This is the news that they're running with. White male, they never identify these things unless it's a white male, like, we just covered in the UK case, where we still haven't really heard much about the individual driving the van through the crowd after the football game. But that's the reality that we're living in right now. And Laura Loomer got it, double-checked, and then had, I guess everyone else gets it after a certain point, which is why you have to take everything with a grain of salt in the media. Now, white male, it could very well have been a white male. The fact that it turns out to be an illegal alien who had been in the country illegally, having claimed asylum in 2022, and nobody's asking what's the broader underlying policy issue that is leading to these types of incidents. And the people out there are going to say, well, look, we can't deport citizen criminals, so what are we supposed to do? You're right. You can't deport citizens who break the law. You can't deport citizens who misbehave. But you can deport illegal aliens or illegal immigrants who do that because you can. And it's not because you have to treat natural-born citizens one way that you don't apply the law to illegal aliens. Now, the problem is, this is a bigger, much bigger, broader problem. And so what you're noticing, and you'll notice it if you go out there, everybody is referring to this, both Democrat and Republican, as an anti-Semitic attack. I pulled up a bunch because it's kind of, if you just go put in the word anti-Semitic attack in Twitter, you'll get what look like not cut and paste, but it's the way it's being described right now. And I'll tell you why, and maybe it's an unpopular view. I think this is a wrong way of labeling it. And I think it's not just counterproductive. I would dare say, at least with respect to those who I believe are complicit in contributing to the problem, it's a way of distracting from what the problem actually is. Governor Tim Walz, my thoughts are with our Jewish neighbors after another horrifying anti-Semitic attack, this time in Boulder. Hate has no place in our country. Nobody needs to say that. You don't need to say hate has no place in our country. First of all, hate is, I would say, a God-given First Amendment right. You can hate people. You can't act on that hate, and you can't commit violence. So it's not the hate that's the issue. People will feel hate to individuals, to groups, to foods, to weather. People will feel hate. There's nothing you can do to prevent that, and there's nothing within your rights that you're allowed to do to even try to prevent people from feeling that. People can't break the law, and people can't commit acts of violence. So set aside the fact that hate has no place in America. Hate has no place. People will feel hate. Hate is a human emotion. Violence has no place in America. And not just anti-Semitic violence, any and all violence. And the need to define what type of violence is not tolerated, some might seem to think or suggest is saying, all right, well, if anti-Semitic violence has no place in Canada, is there any type of violence that has place in Canada? Did I say Canada or America? Let's just keep going through these. Senator Cory Booker, a man who I believe was vigorously championing the rights of illegal alien, gang member, wife beater, alleged human trafficker, Kilmar Garcia. Now he comes in and says, I strongly condemn the anti-Semitic terror attack in Boulder. We must come together and stand against this hate. My heart is with the victims and the Jewish community in Colorado. Anti-Semitic terror attack. Then we got Hakeem Jeffries. Go back and look at some of these people's tweets from the last couple of years. My statement on the anti-Semitic attack in Boulder. The Jewish community in America has once again become the target of a horrific anti-Semitic attack. As residents of Boulder gathered on the eve of the holiday of Shavuot to raise awareness for the hostages still being held captive in Gaza, the peacefulness of their assembly was shattered. Our heartfelt prayers are with all of our Jewish brothers and sisters impacted by this unconscionable act of terror. And we thank law enforcement for their swift response. Anti-Semitism has no place in our nation anywhere or anywhere throughout the world. It must be crushed. We stand with the Jews. Racially motivated hatred, religiously motivated. None of it has a place anywhere. Now, this time, it's an attack targeting what is ostensibly a pro-Israel rally. I don't necessarily think everybody there was Jewish, by the way. There's plenty of Christians who support Israel's right to exist and who attend these rallies. So although they'll call that, nonetheless, it's an anti-Semitic attack, even if there are Christians there, similarly to what happened with the Washington, D.C. shooting. And by the way, when you have, was it Ilhan Omar, who was confronted after the murder of the two embassy workers in D.C.? Do you have anything to say about that? I forget what she said, right? Like, I don't want to talk about this right now. I'm leaving right now. It's nice. Methinks they doth protest a little too much right now, because this is the culmination of their failed policies and their years of vitriolic hatred. Why do you think any community would think it's okay now to target one specific community with acts of violence and terror? I don't know. Maybe because they spent a summer burning shit down and there they tolerated that violence. Maybe it's because sometimes punch a Nazi is tolerated by violence. Violence against right-wing conservatives is tolerated violence. But now, after you've created years and years of tolerating certain types of ideologically motivated violence, now that it hits a group, you got to come out and condemn it. Condemn the consequences of your own failed policy. Rep. Jamie Raskin. Jewish Americans suffer another horrific, violent anti-Semitic attack, sending solidarity and support to the victims and to everyone grappling with fear in the face of more utterly indefensible violence. There is no justification for hate violence and terror. Does that to suggest that there's a justification for other types of violence and terror? Jamie Raskin, one of the worst people that I can possibly imagine in politics. Jewish Americans. So I'm just hypothetically, because it's an illegal alien who had claimed asylum in 2022. I don't know about his criminal record just yet, commits the act of violence against Jews or a Jewish organization, a Jewish event. Condemn it as anti-Semitic terror. The Laken Rileys, the victims who were not ones that, of a specific racial or ethnic origin that commands this type of public condemnation. What about them? What you have here is failed policy. This time it's against a group of Jews or Israel supporters or hostage supporters. You've had this across the country for years now. On an individual basis, Joe Biden wouldn't even say Laken Riley's name. You've got lists of the people who are victims of illegal aliens who are in the country, who haven't been vetted, who are abusing of the system, and who are committing horrendous acts of violence. But now with this one, if you call it an anti-Semitic attack, you ignore the fact that, or you distract from the fact that this was the same consequence of the same failed policy, the same invasion that has been facilitated by the very same Democrats who are now coming out and purporting to be enraged and outraged by this act of violence committed by an illegal alien who was here illegally, claiming asylum, probably because he got the same talking points, probably ironically enough, from an organization that might be related. And this is what happens. And so they'll write it off as anti-Semitic hate, and they're going to ignore the underlying problem, the underlying reality that these are the inevitable and predicted consequences of their failed policy. You open your borders to immigrants who have not just made no effort to integrate or to assimilate, but who basically come proudly saying that they won't. The caravans of people coming to America because Joe Biden effectively invited them, despite seeing Kamala Harris's ugly face. Do not come. Do not come. Open the borders to hundreds of thousands of unvetted illegal aliens. Tell them they can all just claim asylum when they get here so that they de facto become legal. Fly them in so they don't cross the border illegally, then grant them en masse 500,000 plus temporary protection status. Then get the courts to say you can't eliminate that temporary protection status so you can get some of these people out of here so you can get control of what's going on in your own country. You got to do it on a one-by-one, case-by-case basis, which makes it impractical, and impossible. And then when shit like this happens, artificially reduce it to some narrow definition of what's actually going on. This violence, this time targeted a Jewish rally. Next time it'll be a church. Next time it'll be another group. Next time it'll be something that could have been predicted and could have been prevented. In 1997, I was working with 3 officers from Egyptian Navy on a project, took them out fishing on my boat and was able to have regular conversations with them. Long story short, they absolutely blamed Israel for any and all problems in the world. I can't comment on that, but TT Fulltimer, thank you for the chat. Well, there were other. Here we got. Did I bring up Eric Swallowell? I am horrified by the. Yeah, I think I brought up Eric Swallowell. I am horrified by. No, I didn't. I remember I replied to him in particular. I'm horrified by the violent. Appreciate the qualifiers. He's horrified by the violent anti-Semitic attack on Jewish children in Boulder. They were marching with their parents in peace, calling for hostages to be released, and had firebombs thrown at them. We cannot be a country where Jewish people cannot safely be in public. You can't be a country where people cannot be safe in public. And unfortunately, that's the reality that the Democrats have created in America. You should be horrified by every violent attack on children in the country. You should be appalled, horrified, and shocked by every act of violence committed by an illegal alien, instead of going to bat and trying to get foreign countries to ship back their illegal aliens to America, who are here illegally, who are citizens of foreign countries. And do you want to know how flipping tone deaf, and I just dare say stupid and treasonous is not the right word, but nation destroying they are? Look at this. This is today, but this isn't an old post that has aged badly. Democrat wins media. Keeping score of Democrats wins, highlighting the future of the Democratic Party, the largest online community supporting Democratic candidates and causes. They tweet out, I'm not going to play the whole thing, I'll just play a little bit of it. Breaking. In a strong moment, Senator Chris Murphy. This is Margarita Chris, the man who goes down to El Salvador on taxpayer. No, it's not. Oh, I'm sorry. It's absolutely not. It's that was Van Halen, whatever the hell his name is. Chris Murphy's another one who's just a raging jackass. In a strong moment, Senator Chris Murphy just ripped Kristi Noem for illegally deporting Kilmar Garcia. We need more of this. Oh, let's hear this.
Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, AI is an enormous growing industry critical to the future economic health of the country. We have had the benefit over the years of the top talent in AI, researchers, students coming to the United States to help us grow that industry. But for the first time in the last 15 years, there are more top talented individuals and workers in AI leaving the country than coming here. And the reason is pretty simple.
Show me that stat, please. But what the heck? Is this the right clip?
People who are coming here to work from overseas through the visa program are very uncertain about what their rights are. And that is because of the actions this administration has taken. So
it's not clear. If you're here legally with a visa, a valid visa, no problem. If your visa expired I don't know what Mohammed's visa was, and you don't renew it, illegal. If you're here illegally, period, you don't get the same due process rights as those who are here legally or natural-born citizens or naturalized citizens.
I think it's important to get on the record for those individuals who are here currently and those thinking of coming to the United States to work or to study to understand what their rights are. So let me ask you a series of pretty simple questions.
That's right, it's the Kilmar Abrego. It's coming.
Probably the key of right amongst the 5 freedoms is the right to free speech, the right to express your...
Where's the part where he talks about
that you have the right to detain or deport a legal permanent resident for expressing their political opinion?
I don't make decisions on legal status here in the United States. The Department of State does that. And I would say that as they've gone through an evaluation of who gets a visa, who gets legal status, green cards, they've been evaluating and discussing how that applies.
Well, I acknowledge that you don't. I acknowledge you don't make.
Right.
The U.S. government can detain and deport a legal
or deported anybody who's a citizen
to facilitate.
Here we go. Here goes
Garcia.
Yes.
That court decision requires the administration to facilitate Kilmar Garcia's release from El Salvador. Can you describe the steps that you have taken to facilitate this release? And specifically, can you answer as to whether you have reached out to your counterpart in El Salvador to facilitate Mr. Abrego Garcia's release?
Abrego Garcia is a citizen of El Salvador and should never have been in this country and will not be coming back to this country. There is no scenario where Abrego Garcia will be in the United States again. If he were to come back, we would immediately deport him again because he is a terrorist, he's a human smuggler, and he is a wife beater.
Well, now that Kristi Noem said it, I think I could probably drop the alleged. I throw in the word alleged because, cover your ass and be fair for due process of accusing people of serious crimes. When you have the police officers in that video saying, you know what this guy's doing? He's in a decked out human trafficking van with an extra seat in the back for an extra 3 people with money. He's trafficking humans. That type of answer is enough to, quell any concerns you had about Christie. Yep, he's not coming back. If he comes back, we're going to deport him again. He shouldn't have been here. He was an El Salvadorian citizen, member of MS-13, despite what everyone wants to lie to you about being on his hands or not being on his hands. Wife beater, because his wife filed a criminal complaint, or at least a report about him having beaten her, and a human trafficker, as per the assessment of the police officers who pulled him over when he was allegedly trafficking humans.
You've read
this is the day after an illegal alien commits an act of what they're calling anti-Semitic terrorism in America. There is no common sense with these people. They're idiots.
Supreme Court decision. Does the Supreme Court decision not require you to facilitate the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia?
The Trump administration is complying with all court orders and judges' orders.
Does the Supreme Court order require you to facilitate the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia?
I would have, it's always easier from an armchair perspective. What does facilitate mean, Mr. Murphy? Do you think I'm going to order a foreign country to ship back one of their citizens to America? What does facilitate mean in that context? All right, you guys want to send him back? You could do what you want, but we don't have to help you. Now, facilitate active participation. Was this like sort of a proactive injunction ordering the government to do things proactively to bring back the citizen of another country who is a designated member of MS-13? Holy hell. Way to go, Chris. Keep going. The day after an attack, this will really bode well with your constituents.
Is a citizen of El Salvador. It is up to the president of the El Salvador to make the decision.
You're a defendant in the case.
He is coming back. It's been a big topic of conversation between all of us.
Here, you facilitated, Murphy. Take Abrego Garcia into your house. See if your wife likes that. And you notice they harp on the fact that Abrego Garcia was accidentally deported, or they said it was a mistake of the administration, ignoring the fact that mistake might have actually been more a matter of sabotage by Biden loyalists or Trump deranged individuals within the administration who are still there. Oh yeah, it was a mistake. We shouldn't have sent him back. Oh, our bad. Bring him back. When I first heard about that admission, first of all, it's a load of crap. They were allowed to deport him, just apparently not to El Salvador, because he was a gang member who would have been at a specific risk in El Salvador because of rival gangs. So even the reason for which allegedly he shouldn't have been deported back to El Salvador confirmed the reason why he needed to be deported, period. But the idea that someone within the administration would get in front of a court and say, yeah, it was an accident, we should never have deported him. Well, if you think it was a stupid mistake made in good faith, maybe you want to reassess and ask yourself if it was an actual act of sabotage by Biden loyalists or Trump deranged idiots within the administration trying to sabotage the administration, because it's worked wonders. Ever since that amazingly wild, stupid judicial admission of sorts, well, that was the talking point for the rancid Democrats who want to compel the administration to bring back a foreign citizen who is a criminal gang member, wife beater, human trafficker. It's almost like it's a wonderful mistake that they made to undermine or embarrass the administration. Which brings us back full circle, by the way, to yesterday's attack, where Kash Patel and Dan Bongino come out and call it an act of terrorism. You remember after the act of terrorism in New Orleans, when you had that FBI agent come out and say it wasn't an act of terrorism, and then no, it was an act of terrorism, and now you go on whatever... what's it called when you reposition someone within an administration? I don't know. You know what I'm talking about? Put her behind a desk somewhere. It seems that we're having a similar type of potential sabotage going on right now in Colorado. This is coming from Matthew Daughtry, Eric Daughtry. Matthew Daughtry was the guy from American Idol, wasn't he? The singer. Whatever. At Eric L. Daw, Assistant News Director, Florida Voices News. I got to get him on the channel. He's amazing. Follow him. Puts out this tweet, which is now the Boulder, Colorado police chief, contradicting the FBI director Kash Patel, says he's not yet calling it a terror attack, which was carried out by someone shouting pro-Palestine rhetoric to pro-Israel demonstrators while throwing Molotov cocktails and apparently a man-made, house-made flamethrower. Islamic terrorism, says Eric Daughtry. But listen to what this police chief is saying.
FBI is already calling it a targeted terror attack. Would you also refer to it as a terror attack?
By the way, if we're looking at body language, that's what you call turtling up, because you're about to spew some shit. And by the way, I've said it before, I'll say it again. When someone starts a sentence with "so," they're getting ready to lie to you. Look at this. Look at this.
FBI is already calling it a targeted terror attack. Would you also refer to it as a terror attack?
So I've been in contact with our local FBI multiple times. We are in contact with them here. We are not calling it a terror attack at this point. Again, it's way too early to speculate motive. I know there's a lot out there on social media, but I ask people just to give us a little bit of patience while we work through a really complex scene. A lot of witnesses were here. We've taken them to another location to debrief them and interview them. As we do that, I think the picture will become more clear. But it would be irresponsible for me to speculate on motive this early on. We're only a couple hours into this thing.
I appreciate ordinarily saying we're not commenting. It's early. The FBI has already commented on it, but I love this part of here.
Contact with them here. We're not calling it a terror attack at this point. Again,
we're not calling it a terror attack at this point. That's what you call a horse crap answer. We're not calling it that. Doesn't mean that's not what it is. That just means we're denying reality. Much like the same way we say a boy is a girl. I'm not calling you a boy. If you think you're a girl, I'll call you a girl. We're not calling it a terror attack.
Again, it's way too early to speculate motive. I know there's a lot out there on social media, but I ask people just to give us a little bit of patience while.
Yeah, there's a lot out there on social media.
What we can't do when he's got Molotov cocktails in there.
If you are fighting, you have to.
That's what he's got right here. Is Molotov right
Something like that. There's a lot on social media, including hard evidence as to motive, you raging jackass. Now, do I think for a second that a Boulder, Colorado cop wouldn't do something to try to sabotage the Trump administration and try to do something to make Kash Patel and or Dan Bongino look feckless or ineffective as director and deputy director of the FBI? No, of course not. Colorado is a totally sane shithole of a state with a totally sane, what's her face, Jenna Griswold, attorney general. Colorado is probably the most politically insane states out there, tied with a bunch of others. So do I believe that the police chief of Colorado wouldn't do something to try to sabotage the Trump administration or make them look bad? Try to conceal the consequences of their own failed policy? Maybe. Possibly. Who knows? Oh, Lordy, Lordy. Deep breath. Sorry, I just cracked my own back there. That's what's going on in the world there.